Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation with another video for my cronies. It's been long awaited, and as I've been moving through all the different styles, factions, pieces that the Necron army gives us, it's time to start talking about Destroyers. One of the coolest units in the entire Necron army. Mine, I personally prefer Canoptic Spiders, but there is no doubt that in a codex in an army, chock full of some of the coolest units, coolest looking units, fluff-wise, everything-wise, in the game, Destroyers definitely are on that list. They are iconic in so many ways. We see them in videos, we see them in video games all over the place. Destroyers, Destroyers, Destroyers. And for the Necrons, we have many different types of Destroyers. Today, I'm going to jump right to the forefront on probably one of the most popular, if not the most technical of the Destroyers, the Ophydians. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notification, get notified on all the different videos we bring you here on the channel, including the coverage of the rest of the Destroyer units. I go over them and talk about them and their merits competitively in competitive play. We're just starting off right at the top, because I feel like a lot of the other Destroyer units are not seeing as much play for one reason or another. And I think that there's two units, Ophidians and Locust Heavies, that see the most play. And I think Ophidians are probably one of the best technical pieces that we have in the Necron army. So let's take a look. Let's jump over into their stat line. First of all, Ophidian Destroyers come in with a move characteristic of 9, with a toughness 5, a 4-up save, and 3 wounds. They have leadership 7 with objective control value 2. Now, the difference with these guys as compared to a lot of other Destroyer stat lines, Destroyer stat lines kind of move a little bit all over the place. The Scorpex and the Locust have a higher toughness stat, lower move, where these guys, the Ophidians, have a higher move. But not only do they have a lower toughness, they also have a lower save, which makes them a little more fragile. They do come with 3 wounds to keep them safe, but it's still easier to take these guys out than it is for Scorpex or Locust, just based on stats, and pound for pound. Now, that's only if you can see them, because that's not really what the strength of the Ophidians is. We'll get to that shortly. Much like all the rest of the Destroyers, aside from the characters, these guys do not have an invulnerable save. They do have Deep Strike keyword, which is going to come in very, very important with how these guys play, typical reanimation protocols, and their ability Tunneling Horror. Tunneling Horror is a large paragraph of words that basically says at the end of your opponent's turn, you can pick these guys up, put them into reserve, and then place them back on the field during your reinforcement step of your opponent's next, of your next reinforcement phase. Now, it doesn't say these guys actually go into reserve, excuse me, but they do leave the battlefield and allow you to put them back on the field anywhere 9 inches away, not from a table edge, anywhere on the battlefield. That's going to be one of the big mechanics for these. And as we've seen with many other armies, like with my Grey Knights, how I've always played them, we have the Calidus Assassin, as well as many other units, even the Veil of Darkness right here out of Necrons. That ability is a very, very valuable ability, and one that can help with secondaries, with primaries even, to be able to go into an area that is not heavily defended, as well as just continuing table coverage from this unit. Their weapons are not that bad either. They have the hyperphase weapons. Now, old Ophidians had little claws that would give them additional attacks, and then they had the same weapons as the Destroyers, and there was 2 weapon profiles. Now everything is combined. So you got 5 attacks, weapon skill 3, strength 4, AP 2, 2 damage. Not a terrible profile. These guys don't have lethal hits or anything to get around that strength 4 aspect of them, but they are Destroyers that have the ability to take a plasma sight. Scorpex and Ophidians both can take a plasma sight, a little free dude. It's a little free. I call it the puppy of the squad. And basically, you expend this to give the unit devastating wounds. So this is a way to get around that strength 4 aspect, to be able to have those 6s just go straight through. So on the combat side of things, these guys are relatively weak, but I'm talking them up very, very high. And when we say destroyers, typically when you look at destroyers, you're expecting them to pick something up, as we talk about later on with locusts, heavies, and scorpeks on some of the possible damage outputs they can have. Ophidians have zero character support, other than a Sovereign Cornell in these guys to be able to get that weapon skill 3 up to a 2. There's really nothing that supports them. And with their tunnel air ability, they're really probably not going to be near your Sovereign Cornell. And that's perfectly fine. So now let's start talking about the more technical things. Now that we've addressed what these guys can do and what they have on how these guys actually work. First of all, they have Deep Strike. So with Deep Strike, you put them in reserve, and then on turns 2 or 3, you can place these guys on the field anywhere 9 inches away. Typically, if you're running 2 squads of them, the Deep Strike is good. It allows you to take 1 squad away, put it into reserve, while the second squad stays on the field. Typically, you want to have 1 squad on the field. A couple reasons why. Number 1, zoning out your backfield. Nothing sucks but then trying to figure out what units are going to hang back and zone out your backfield. Number 2, if your opponent goes first, again, zoning out the backfield, you run into a faster situation where you can now pick those guys up off the field at the end of your opponent's first turn and place them down during your first turn during your reinforcement step. This means that these guys can get out of your corner much, much faster. The objective control value 2 for them is actually really interesting because that gives them a little bit of higher objective control value over units that might be able to crash onto an objective and take it early, but not hold it for a very long time. Being the fact that 2 of these models will hit objective control value 4 on that objective marker helps hold that out over some vehicles that have an objective control value 3. As I've said in other videos, this is the numbers game that we need to play on the objective markers. So with that being said, these guys are able to get into a corner, get onto an objective marker, string back, hold the objective, and be in position to do secondaries later into the game. Now, on top of the fact that they can pick up at the end of your opponent's turn. So once you draw your secondary cards, that's when you know what you want to do with these guys, where you want them to go, and how you want them to score points. Speaking of points, these guys come in at 100 points for 3 of them. Realistically, that's not that bad. A lot of other units in the game that are trying to get out into other areas, for whether it's Infiltrate or Deep Strike, usually cost around that. And these guys are able to consistently do it. Calidus Assassin is at 90 points now, and it's a single model that can do that with Lone Operative. It's a very defensive choice to be able to do that. Ophidians have 3 wounds apiece. So you're looking at a 9 wound brick for 100 points versus a Calidus Assassin that does have Lone Operative, mind you, and is 5 wounds for 90 points. Not bad, especially because you know what? You know what also prevents a unit from being shot at? Hiding behind a rune. These guys drop in wherever you need them to be and in position to hold that corner and make your opponent have to try to come in to dig them out. And as they get closer to do this, and they get closer and hit, if they remove 1 or 2, the whole squad is not removed. You can still trigger reanimation protocols, as well as the fact you can pick them up and get them out of there as long as they're not in combat. So this unit is reusable for that ability to move around the map and consistently score things such as behind enemy lines, engage on all fronts, deploy teleport homers. What else do we have? Investigate signals. These are all things that Ophydian Destroyers can do by themselves. So in some ways, the last part of the name, Destroyers, is not really fitting for these guys because they're not going to be doing much destroying. Mostly what they're going to be doing is scoring points. They're going to be getting into corners and gaining those points that other units can't. Now, granted, in Necron Codex, there's no shortage of units that can get around and get out of the zones. Tomb Blades have a scout move. Scarabs are relatively cheap. And even a single Locust Destroyer model is very, very strong for what we're discussing here with this. But the Ophydian Destroyer is able to constantly be a trap card in your back pocket. That whenever you draw that card, that secondary, it is very difficult for your opponent to stop it. On top of the fact that it's something that's constantly in your opponent's head. They're going to be constantly trying to zone you out of areas so the Ophydian Destroyers can't get in there. And with that being said, these guys already have a 9-inch move. So they can move quickly. And being the fact that they're infantry, they can move through runes. So these guys also have an extra, some moves. So if you don't want to pick them up off the table, they can still get going. The Plasma Sight in them is free. And again, these guys do hit for AP2 with 2 damage. Granted, they're only strength 4, but 5 attacks, you could throw some dice and pick up some Marines, some little stuff, some things that your opponent has a little bit of durability invested behind, but not quite enough. Where these guys can come in, sweep, clear, pick them up, maybe lose a couple of wounds, maybe lose a model or 2, and then start reanimating back up to full squad. Again, we're Necrons. If you don't finish this off, we just keep coming back. So I have to rank Ophydian Destroyers as probably one of the best units in our codex. You know, when you look at certain things and you start building an army, you, especially competitively, you're having those secondaries in mind. And you can look at a fixed aspect, or you can look at the tactical aspect. Some tournaments force the tactical aspect. With Ophidians, you're okay on most fronts. You know, and I mean tactical supporting the most, because these guys are able to be that wild card. If you're going with a more set range of, and you're trying to do fixed missions with your army, Ophydian Destroyers do make some of those fixed combinations possible, simply because they're able to be constant sources to score points. If you're trying to do a behind enemy lines trick and want something that can consistently get back there and score points, Ophidians are great for that job. Right up there with Tomb Blades and their speed. So Ophidians, don't sleep on them. If you look at these snaky guys, you look at their stat line and go, you know what, Scorpex just looks so stronger. It's all about that tunneling ability. And I highly, highly recommend, if you haven't tried out Ophydian Destroyers yet and put them in your list and just use them for a secondary game, you're missing out. These guys are great and really seriously score so many points just by themselves. It's so worth just scraping 100 points to get 3 of these guys in here. Well, guys, that's it for this video, talking about Ophidians. We're going to be going through all of the destroyers, and then we'll jump back over into the characters and talk about some of the stuff they can do. And one of my recent videos, a little update, we were talking about the Tezzeret Vault, and is it competitive? And after hearing a lot of responses and everything, and a lot from the community, again, I love this community. I love being a part of it, because you guys stopped me from probably having a bad weekend. And, you know, I mean, I took some cold medicine. Kids are still bringing in all sorts of different plagues of Nurgle into the household with starting back to school, 3 of them, and the wife being a teacher as well, too. So I got four different ways that this is coming in here. But the vault, it looks like it stays from, is it honorable or is it adorable? And the answer is, it's adorable. The Tezzeret Vault, it's a lot of armies pack a punch that they can take it out in one turn. And granted, it's only 375 points, yes, but it's a sizable enough investment to kind of say that it's not really the range. One person commented on this, and I do have to agree. The rage bulked behind it at 24-inch range kind of makes it tough, where it makes it that you really have to start pushing this thing forward. And after you get that one decent hit off with this thing, your opponent's able to counter back, and with maybe with even assault options, and charge this thing and put a lot of bulk onto it, that its survival moving forward is not going to be as strong as something such as the Transcendent Catan with the Centripetal Weave. While the spiders can give the vault a 6-up feel no pain, Transcendent Catan just has a 4-up. It's much easier to hide the Transcendent because it's smaller, and it probably does better all around for the secondary game. Not to mention the fact, honestly, I would argue that the Transcendent Catan with the Centripetal Weave is probably more durable than Tezzeret Vault. While the Tezzeret Vault has 1 point higher of toughness, the Transcendent Catan is reducing the damage, cutting it in half, and then sticking a 4-up feel no pain against everything. Now, the Vault does have a 2-up save that the Transcendent is not going to be able to take advantage of. However, how often are those weapons going to be shooting at it? You know, I mean, it goes through my mind that some low damage, low strength weapons shoot at it, but then I'm absorbing that could be shooting at something else, a better target. And The Transcendent Catan can heal. You know, originally it didn't have reanimation protocols, but they fixed that, so he's got reanimation, so he can heal back up. And by the Reanimator, that's 3d3 that I could be putting on him. The regular reanimation, the Reanimator's boosted d3, and then the Techno walks over there and taps him with his staff and says, "Be healed." All right, so I think that kind of also settles it too. I will probably be taking a Transcendent Catan. I got a real cool one that's all converted up with Canoptic all over it, so I think she's going to be coming with me for this tournament. So, and that'll be this weekend. But before that, we're going to get some other Destroyer videos out here. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. Please leave comments down below on more questions and inquiries, especially moving forward with some of the other Destroyer units. And I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching.